we talked about, kind of forecasting what these injuries mean for the Seahawks. DJ mentioned Dwayne Brown is out. Eddie Lacy's been going through some injuries. Russell Wilson dodged concussion protocol on Thursday night. I mean, offensively, let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. What do all these injuries mean? Luke Jokel's out. That's another offensive lineman that's down. I mean, what's it mean for the offense?
I'm not really sure until we get closer to game time. I think the status for Dwayne Brown is still uncertain at this point for this week. If we have him, I think the Hawks offense can produce enough points to where we can beat the Falcons and the defense can hold them, because, I mean, to be quite frank, the Falcons haven't looked, super good on offense this year. Julio Jones is going to be a problem, especially not having Sherman out there. So, I mean, I know we're just speaking offensively, but as a whole, it's really going to come down to if we can stop Julio Jones in that offense.
We'll get there. Seth, what do you think of the offensive injuries?
Well, I'm hopeful that with the week and a half between games that Dwayne Brown won't even miss a game. I think it's just a sprained ankle, right?
Yes, it is.
He may very well be back by then. And I believe Luke Jokel is also supposed to be back, perhaps not this week, but in the next few weeks. So hopefully they won't be out for too long and they can get some consistency on that offensive line.
You say a sprained ankle, though. For an offensive lineman in the NFL, it's the biggest human that are walking the face of the earth. Like, a sprained ankle to a 6'8", 340-pound man is a lot different than a sprained ankle for, 5'11", 200 pounds. I mean, it's a different injury for those big men. I think we would know more about what the offensive injuries mean if we knew what the offense was.
Fair enough.
Right? Because now we can kind of transition and talk about the defensive injuries. Richard Sherman, no more.
Yeah.
And that's a huge blow. I think the way that it affects the offense, though, is that all of a sudden 25 points aren't enough.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. I think that there's no point number that's enough now. When they go ahead and go forward and face teams, it's all about, man, we gotta hang a 40 whatever on this team. We gotta hang 50 on this team because we don't know what the defense is going to be now.
The offense has to be better. I did a little digging, did some research.
Let's hear it.
In the Seahawks' 9 games so far, they've scored on the opening possession only twice, and both times it was just a field goal. So in their 9 opening possessions, they've scored a grand total of 6 points. So I think that has to change.
So it's about getting off to a good start? Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree because, that kind of sets the tone right away. And if you can set that tone, especially at home where the Hawks have been, so good, then that's gonna really help you going forward. As far as, speaking defensively, I kind of got into saying it, but you got to stop Julio Jones. And then Tevin Coleman, he's still a good back sitting behind Freeman. That duo has proved to be gold in that backfield for Atlanta. So stopping Julio, stopping the run game, it's going to be a tough task this week. And I think if we have Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, Sheldon Richardson, those guys up front with getting pressure on Matt Ryan can cause some problems. And then in the back end, I think it'll be big if we can have Earl Thomas this week, which Pete Carroll was optimistic about him being back this week, but that's going to make a huge difference as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We can go ahead and talk about that Atlanta Falcons game now. They play on Monday night in Seattle. And when you look at these two teams just as a whole, without looking at any players, the offensive matchup is ridiculous how close these two teams are. The Falcons are averaging, 368 yards per game. The Seahawks are averaging 368.4 yards a game.
Oh, so we're better.
We're better by a football. Literally a football. That's how much better this team is. They're doing it in different ways. The Seahawks are passing for more yards than the Falcons are, which is kind of, when you think about it, we've used the word narrative before. You think Seahawks defense and run the ball. Not true. Seahawks are throwing the ball better than they're running the ball. That's pretty obvious this year. And they're a different team. So let's talk about the matchup. DJ, you've already gotten into it. You talk about shutting down Julio Jones. How are they going to do it without Richard Sherman? What is the answer there? Because you mentioned Julio Jones. He's coming in with 715 receiving yards halfway through the season. I mean, that's a pretty big number.
Yeah, you're going to have to kind of, so if they go like a 3-by-1, for example, you're going to have to, use another safety to be over there along with a cornerback. I don't know if Byron Maxwell, I know we just signed him. I don't know if he's going to play this week, even though he kind of knows the system, but you're going to have to put extra attention on him, which is, is going to put all the other guys on an island. And really, if we can stop Julio, it's going to depend on if we can stop, Taylor Gabriel, Mohamed Sanu, those guys, because those guys, if you shut down Julio, those guys can end up beating you. And so it'll just be a matter of if we can stop pretty much their whole wide receiving core in different ways, though.
Seth, you got thoughts on this?
I think if the Seahawks are going to have a chance at winning this game, they have to clean up the penalties. In the Arizona game, they basically gave Arizona their first touchdown, allowing 4 first downs on penalties on Arizona's first touchdown drive.
Yeah.
The Seahawks have 94 penalties in 9 games, which is 13 more than the next team has.
Are they leading the NFL too?
They have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just can't give away first downs, especially in the NFL where you gotta have good field position, and with our offense, the field position matters because our offense has been subpar this year.
Well, I like what both of you have to bring to the table. I think that last week, even with the backup quarterback, Larry Fitzgerald had a pretty solid day for the Arizona
and Drew
Cardinals.
Stanton missed some throws that were open.
Right. So, it's not necessarily, DJ, to your point, it's not necessarily about stopping one guy, but the Falcons receiving core, or the Falcons in general as a whole.
Yeah.
Being able to slow them down and keep them out of the end zone. I think that's where I would take it. I'll let them move 20-20. If they're kicking field goals all night long, the defense is doing its job.
Yeah.
I don't know that that'll be the case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to say, Falcons are going to score a little bit during this game.
Yeah, definitely.
But, and Seth, you brought the penalties up. I mean, that's an excellent point. You can't just hand over yards. You can't take yards away from yourself.
They give away 100 yards a game on penalties.
Which is stupid.
It's a whole field's length.
It is dumb that is something that they do, and they've been known for it in the past. I mean, it's not a secret that the Seahawks are a little bit undisciplined when it comes to things like that. So it should be one of the more intriguing matchups for the Seahawks this year, especially at a time, it's funny how quickly things change. At the beginning of the year, I could think that we were probably talking about how no one's really that good. Right? We were talking, everyone has like a 2-2 record and no one's, set themselves apart. Now all of a sudden, what is the Seahawks record? What are they sitting at?
They are
6-3.
6-3, yes.
6-3 right now, and they're the last team in the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
They're the 6th seed in the playoffs.
Them and the Panthers.
So it's funny, now we're talking about a defense that was so good in the early part of the year. They lose a player or 3 or 4 or 5, and now we're talking about how strange and how hard it's going to be for them to keep teams out of the end zone.
Yeah.
It's why people follow sports. I mean, this is crazy.
It's going to be, each game from here on out is going to be important because the NFC is just so tight right now with all the standings, and maybe, we see more spacing as the year goes on, but to keep pace, if you want a chance at winning the division, which the Hawks still do, they're only 1 game behind the Rams, you got to go 1-0 every week, and I think, that's what the Hawks got to do this week. It sounds simple, just go 1-0 every week, but it's just so hard in the National Football League.
Seth, you got some thoughts as we close this one out and get closer to a break?
Well, and the Falcons are right on the Seahawks' tail as far as NFC playoff standings. So this is a game that, at the end of the season, if the Seahawks lose, if they were to miss the playoffs or miss out on a tiebreaker with the Falcons as far as seeding in the playoffs, you're going to point to that game and say, we should have had that one.
Another very important game for the Seattle Seahawks, and with all the changes that have happened to the Seahawks. Yeah, DJ, you want to add something to it?
I just want to get predictions.
Always with the prediction game. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, DJ, go ahead then. Lead it off. What you got?
You're
gonna play this game. You're gonna get it. Let's go, DJ.
I'm gonna say this one is kind of like the Texans game, where our defense really wasn't able to stop them either.
All of them have to be. I'm gonna reiterate that. All of them have to be like 50-48 from here on out, because I don't think the defense is gonna be.
I don't know that it does.
Why?
When we play the Niners, you think that'll be like that?
Okay, one game. one game where it doesn't. The rest, to beat the Rams, they're going to have to hang 50 on them.
I mean,
Which is
maybe
the most important win they could pick up. Go for it, Seth.
maybe 31-30. Do you really think people are going to go from putting like 18 points a game to 50 on the Seahawks just with the loss of Sherman? Does Sherman make a 32-point per game difference?
Sherman, well, in a literal sense, no. But you got to understand, it's not just Sherman who is now gone from this team. There are other players who are going to miss weeks from the injuries that happened on Thursday night. It's not a literal 32-point difference, but the ideal goal for the Seahawks offense should be to hang 50 points because 25 is no longer good enough for that defense.
I'm going to say 34-31 Hawks.
What was that one more time?
34-31 Hawks.
Okay.
On a last-second field goal.
Of course. Why not? Seth, what do you got for us? I hate this game.
I'll say 33-30 Seahawks, and I think they're going to get a fourth down stop on the last minute of the game to stop Atlanta from scoring.
Okay. I like
Give
it.
me the Falcons 31-18.
Yep. There we go.
Just because 18's the weirdest score I could think of.
Why not?
And I don't trust the Seahawks offense.
That's a whole lot of field goals, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it's cool. That's what it's going to be.